Alright, doggies, here's the deal. I do not have a script, and I'm gonna be honest with you, the audio is most likely gonna be awful, just because the window here is super, super thin. It's closed, but you can hear traffic every time it passes by. But I don't have a dialogue, I don't have a script, I don't have any notes for this video. I have like my tasks, my to-do things, but I thought what would be really cool, I wasn't gonna film this until tomorrow. I just got out of the shower, didn't put my contacts back in, that's why we're wearing glasses. I was gonna film this tomorrow, after I got a haircut that I need, after I was, you know, the stars aligned and it was the perfect timing to do this. But what I wanna do is, by the time this goes up, I'll already have the videos deleted, but I'm deleting the travel videos that I put up where it was like book 20, 23, 24, 25, that kind of thing, where I was traveling this summer. I'm gonna delete that, and I wanna be consistent with the theme of the university, which is essentially, for Ratlife University, all of the, you can hear the fucking noise outside, I'm telling you, that's crazy. But that's every day. You can, you can hear the, you can see the theme of all the Robert Greene books. So I'm gonna finish the Laws of Power, 48 Laws of Power, and then I have the 33 Strategies of War with me. It's actually what's keeping this thing up right now. I could take the camera off and show you. I have all of my books stacked on top of a pot that's upside down, and then 2 oatmeal boxes on top of that. And that's, excuse me, that's our makeshift tripod here in Sao Paulo, Brazil. That's what we gotta work with. So that's what we're doing. But I want to stay with the theme. So I wanted to finish for the university portion all of the Robert Greene books. Excuse my shoulder. I don't know if I'm gonna do seduction. He has Power, War, Human Nature, Seduction, and Mastery. Seduction I've wanted to do actually for the longest time, and I actually own that book. I don't have it with me. It's in storage with my mother and sisters in Fresno, but I don't think those videos age well. Because I'll be honest with you, this is kind of a tangent, then I'll get into what I actually wanted to talk about in this video. I remember before I even had the confidence to go up to a woman, to talk to a woman, when I was like 17 years old, freshman in college, I was on YouTube and I found this channel called Simple Pickup. And they would just do, these guys would just do these really, really stupid pickup lines to girls on like college campuses. And as stupid as they were, it was such a, I watched that and I just thought it was incredible because these guys weren't, you know, super attractive, and they were just, you know, making these people laugh. But it taught me so much about neutrality, meaning if you got a great response from somebody, not to have it inflate your ego. And if you got a terrible response from somebody, not to have it crush your self-worth, your self-value, you know what I'm saying? But just staying neutral with the flow. And I would do that. So the 17 and then into 18-year-old Tarek, when I first started, actually before my physical transformation journey began, I know, the noise, June 25th, 2013, I was 18 years old. I weighed 145 pounds at my height of 6'2". So you can imagine the, you know, lack of confidence that I had, the lack of, you know, comfortability in my own skin to even go up to people. But I remember I would do the cold pickup, the cold approaches on campus, and I would get some amazing responses. I would get some terrible ones. I remember a line I used a couple times. It was so stupid. I was working as a barista. This is before they fired me. And a girl would come up to the cash register, and then I would slam my hand on the desk, and I would be like, "Was that an earthquake? Or did you just rock my world?" And she'd be like, "That's so stupid." Or no, she'd say, that's pretty good. And then I'd say, "Good enough to get your number." And so she'd like, "Yeah, I guess." And then they gave it to you. I had her, this chick, write it on this hand. Next girl comes up. I use the exact same stupid fucking line. I get the exact same response. You know, pretty good. That was good. I was like, "Good enough to get your number." And then I give her the same hand initially that has the number written on it, and I'm like, "Oh, sorry." And then I give her the other one, and that makes her laugh and smile even more. The reason that I'm bringing that up is that is what's called social proof, and little things like that aren't taught in school. And so I thought that would be something that's like valuable to the 17, 18-year-old kid who, you know, lacks the confidence to even go up to somebody and break the ice. You know, how much does a polar bear weigh? Enough to break the ice. Fucking stupid. But the reason that I say I don't think those videos age well in terms of, you know, seduction with women, or just as a guy or girl, even though seduction is just sales, essentially, where you can apply it to anything. You know, you have to be a salesman in order to, you know, convince somebody to go out with you, just as you're a salesman when you convince your children to eat properly or to go to bed at a certain time or to, you know, take their education seriously. You're always trying to close someone. And then you learn in books like The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort, straight line selling, where you want to know what your outcome is before going into the interaction. So like before picking up a call where you're going to reach out to a prospect, you want to know, what is my target? What is my goal? It applies the same for dating or for courting people. It's like, is my outcome, you know, to get laid? Is it to get a follow-up date? Is it to get a first date? Is it to get their phone number? So it's all that same mentality. But right now I don't have that lens whatsoever that I did, sorry for the fucking noise, when I was a younger Tarek, just because you sort of crest that threshold of you're just looking for your wife kind of a deal. Or, now there's neighbors outside, I don't know if you can hear them, not even looking for a wife. I came across an amazing quote because God has already confirmed for me, at least. I shared this with someone over Instagram, actually, because I told him, I was like, I'm struggling for my life, like with what I'm doing right now and like finding time to like cook my meals and be consistent with the diet. And I was like, I need a wife, man, I'm struggling. And then she was like, God is gonna, you know, give you your wife. And I told her, I said, I'll share with you, God has already confirmed who my wife is gonna be. He confirmed it 3 times in my spirit. And I told her, I said, but do you know what's really cool? I came across a quote the other day and it said, essentially, so I said, you know, God has promised me who my wife's gonna be. But then the quote essentially said, you need to become the man he promised her. And I read that, or saw that on the, you know, Instagram reel or whatever, and I was just like, fuck. And I said, and I told it to my friend Laura. I was like, who did he promise her? You know what I'm saying? Like, who do you have to become, kind of a deal? Because it's also interesting in the context of like love and worthiness. It's not so much that you need to become more to be worthy of somebody, but there's so much more that you can become as a man, as a protector, as a provider, as a leader, as a man of character. And so it's all about closing that gap. And honestly, that's what Ratlife is all about. When I say it starts with belief and the courage to pursue, it's all about, there's a good quote by Paulo Coelho that I've probably shared 1,000 times earlier in our lectures, where he's like, maybe life isn't so much about becoming anything, but it's about unbecoming everything that isn't us. And what's interesting is on your path, that's the name of the game. Every person that you're interacting with on your journey, they're just a mirror. They're a mirror of an insecurity, of a limiting belief, of something that you have improvement for your journey. They're a mirror. There's a perfect quote that captures it. We're all just walking each other home. Every single person you meet, whether they're conscious about it or not, are aiding you in the walk home to your truest self, to your authentic self, your highest vibration, your highest frequency, your godlike divinity. And that's what every single person is doing. And they're mirroring back to you. Maybe you need this kind of humility. Maybe, wow, this person has such an ego. They're reflecting something that's you're battling with, you're struggling with. And so there's a really good idea that most people, they never self-analyze. They never self-reflect. They always say, wow, this person needs this to improve on, this to improve on, this to improve on, not ever considering the fact that they're mirroring back to them where you have room for improvement, for growth, for healing, for trauma addressing, for your own development. But I thought what would be really cool to share, since I'm deleting those videos, this is going to be a redo for semester 3, The Courage to Pursue. It's just to talk about where I am now and the sort of series of events that have gotten me to where we are today. So I'm not going to cut any of these. We're going to cure your mind, where most of you guys have such a short attention span that anytime I actually talk like myself and take a breath, you know, you're just, oh wow, boring, on to the next, versus actually being present. You know what I'm saying? When you got that scroll brain, you have less attention span than that of a goldfish. You understand? It's broken, it needs to be remedied, it needs to be fixed. So I'll tell you what's interesting. It was late January, and I got placed on paid administrative leave from my job January 8th. And I think the exact day was January 26th when I, as my highest self, booked 2 flights. And when I say as my highest self, I mean when you're connected, when you're plugged in to your godlike self, when you're in complete euphoric abundance, lack and scarcity and fear don't exist. It's actually impossible. I learned this from Tony Robbins. It's impossible to operate in abundance and lack simultaneously. It's impossible to operate in gratitude and fear simultaneously, in one and the other, right? You have to choose which one you're residing in. On this particular day, where I was on paid administrative leave of absence from my job, late January, my highest self, I was in the complete omission of scarcity, of fear, of lack. I booked, and by me I mean God booked 2 flights, 2 one-way flights. One was a one-way flight to Europe for exactly 90 days, and the other one was a one-way flight to Brazil for no return flight. So where I am right now in Sao Paulo, But the reason that that's important, that I wanted to share it, is because the flight was for July 3rd, but my paid administrative leave of absence was for an indefinite period of time, meaning there was I had no idea. It was, if you've ever read the book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, he talks about the worst thing that he succumbed to in his 4 Nazi concentration camps. And it wasn't the atrocities. He said it wasn't the cannibalism, it wasn't, going on the trains and having to sleep in just, fecal matter and piss. It wasn't any of the abuse, it wasn't any of the physical, it wasn't any of that shit. The worst mental prison, the mental hell, and the real agony was unlimited uncertainty. Not knowing if your liberation was going to be in a day or in 30 years or never. And I experienced, obviously in a much smaller scale, that exact same unlimited uncertainty when I got placed on paid administrative leave of absence. And what's interesting is, and I can talk about this, the context of it, it's so beautiful when you think about God's chessboard. And the context of it was, I wasn't allowed to get a new job. I was forbidden from getting a new job. I wasn't allowed to leave, like even the city, because I had to be on call within an hour. As in, if the HR director called me, I had to be available to report to work within an hour at any given time. And that was my status for 6 months straight. Can you imagine that? So being on call, on kind of fight or flight, but I kind of got over it, months in. But just unlimited uncertainty. It's like, okay, maybe they call me in now, and then that's going to be firing or resignation. Okay, then how am I paying rent? And then this, and that's what you're thinking about every day. And then you're doing the war game. It's like, okay, I have enough for my overhead expenses. I need to make it to this day in order to get this paycheck, in order to cover here. But what's interesting is, prior to that, to give you guys the full context, I remember going on a walk. I went on a walk after work, and I was in tears. And it was, obviously I got liberated January 8th by the grace of God, but my walk it probably was that week before, or actually the week before was winter break, so it was right before winter break, right before December, and I was living a living hell because my lovely coworkers, they were doing intentional malevolence, intentional psychological abuse, intentional harassment, intentional bullying, and that was a living hell because you're in a constant state of fight or flight. So you have that cortisol drip that's running 24/7 because every day you're walking into the office knowing you're going to get harassed and bullied and abused, and you don't know if today's going to be the day where you walk in and you are given that pink slip kind of a deal saying, hey, you're fired. Because I didn't know any, school legalities or, the process of it or whatever, to know what they could and could not do at the time. But I remember going on a walk with God, and I said, I know you can liberate me at any time, and you're choosing not to. And the reason that I knew that is because I was applying every single day. I was on a job board for school districts every single day to get a new job for literally, I knew that I was overqualified for that job within the first like week of getting hired, and then I knew the abundant stupidity that I was going to be subject to, and in the first month of getting hired, I was already looking for a new job because I knew what clowns that I was surrounded by and working under, and so I remember I was on that job board every week, if not every single day, for 18 months straight, and using all of my sick days and vacation days to try to get a new job. And for a year and a half without miss. I'm talking, that was my morning fucking routine before anything else was like, let me find a new position, a new job. And I did like 14 in-person interviews. One of them was I passed the test to be a custodial supervisor just because I'm a really good test taker, and then I get into the interview because I qualified for it. And then it's just the first thing they asked me is like, what kind of pesticide whatever would you use in like this scenario, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know, please, I need a job. But obviously, don't worry, don't call us, we won't call you. Oh my gosh. But the point is, I tried literally everything. Like I applied for jobs in Fresno, where my mom lives. I applied for jobs in San Diego. I was like, I'm willing to do a relocation out of 250 miles away, 300 miles away. I'm willing to drive 3 hours to and from work every single day. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get a new job, right? And because I had that complete honesty with myself of knowing how hard I was trying, in that cry, essentially, I was tearing up on the walk. And I'm about to burp, that's why I'm hesitating right now. Excuse me. I told God, because I knew I was trying my best. There's a quote from Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It's an incredible book. I'd highly recommend it. It's in this university. And he says, anything that you go through, no matter how trivial, is your required assignment. Your required assignment. Not a coincidence, not a happenstance. No matter how trivial the fucking task or the circumstance or the condition, it's your required assignment for your highest good, for your highest nature's design, for your greatest potential. And so I said on that walk, I said, God, I know you could take me out at any time, you're choosing not to. And I know that because of how hard I'm trying to get a new job, that keeps getting denied. 14 denials, for in-person interviews. Granted, one of them, obviously I wasn't qualified for it. But I said, because of that fact, I know that I'm here for a greater purpose. And I know that this hell that I'm going through right now, one day I'll be, having tears of gratitude and joy and thanking you for having me go through this. But I was just complete honesty. I said, I don't know how much longer I can take this. And even in the meetings with my HR director, I told her I'm never going to give up. I will never quit. And what's fascinating is on your hero's journey, anything isn't a happenstance. Meaning, I remember when I was living in Irvine with my brother and his friend Vinny, I watched almost, except like the last season or two, the show Suits, and there's a scene in it with Harvey Specter and Mikey, whatever his associate name was, and he was like, I wanted to quit every single day, and then he was like, let me guess, you didn't, and he was like, I quit every fucking day, but I never let them see that they broke me. It was the exact same, and so it's really cool that everything you watch is like a little seed that gets planted on your journey, even though you think it's trivial and it's like, oh, I'm just watching a TV show. No, it plays a part later in your life. That's why it's really cool. That's why I shared it. But that was the exact same thing, dude. Before I went back into the office, I would be like, cleaning up, and then I was like, I'm not gonna let these motherfuckers know that they're breaking me right now, because I wasn't suicidal, but I didn't want to live anymore. Like, because I knew how hard I was trying to get a new job, and I needed this job because I couldn't find another job, and I knew I was coming into intentional bullying and harassment and psychological abuse. Like, I'd get reported to HR for something, and then I would get assigned that task to do that they reported me for. It was super fucked for my mental health. And I told God in that walk, I said, I don't know how much longer I can take this. Like, I am at the edge and beyond. But I said, I'm gonna fucking keep going and just reach breakthrough until. And that's what the courage to pursue and what the whole thing's about. When I say Ratlife, it starts with belief in the courage to pursue. It's the courage to persist until the breakthrough. The challenge with that is you don't know, it's a finite number of steps, but you have no idea when that breakthrough is going to be. but it's on the other side of where everybody else gives up and where everybody else quits. And I can say with certainty that I was placed there. I got a text today by one of my amazing coworker friends, who she got a new job away from that snake pit, and she was like, I thought of you, and I wanted to share this about like taking that leap of faith and not giving up. And then, you know, she got this new job in a different place, and it exacerbates that quote, life is about planting trees under whose shade you will never sit. And so I knew I was assigned there for not just for myself, but for the sake of other people. And I also knew that there wasn't anybody else that would have been able to take that, to take what I endured and had the mental fortitude to weather that ceaseless assault, storm, you know. And so, yeah, but also it worked as a twofold, as my season of refinement, because from going through that hell, it was essentially me going through God's refinement, and I came out a better person. And so as much as you want to have, you know, animosity for these malevolent snakes, serpents, demons, you know, you can only thank them, because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be living the life that I am now. So I wanted to share that, because what was fascinating is I got the call from the HR director less than a week. So it was a Thursday, my flight was on Wednesday. So 6 days before my flight to Europe was scheduled for, where I was given the choice of you can resign in lieu of termination, or we're going to draft paperwork for your termination. And so I chose to resign. And that is what began this journey of where I am now. So over the summer, and what the videos that by the time this is up, I deleted them, where I did 9 days in Europe, and by God's grace, I was able to take my mom for the last 2.5 weeks on our third Mom and Tarek, you know, Euro trip number 3, and then make it here to Brazil. But I don't want to lose my train of thought. Let me drink this. Maybe I'll pause this right here. Hold on. It's fascinating for a couple reasons. Number one is the entire time I was in that state of unlimited uncertainty, so I couldn't harbor any excitement or joy or enthusiasm for the summer trip that I didn't know whether it was going to happen or not. That's number one. Number two, I don't know why I messed with Zoom, and I should have just not touched it. Number two, I knew I booked the flight to Brazil, but I had no idea what I would be doing there. It was just something that I had in my heart. I've always had a calling to go to Brazil. A saudade, as they say in Portuguese. A saudade, something like that. It's a longing. I've always had a longing in my heart. And I've seen so many of those, you know, like motivational Instagram posts that say, if you feel something in your heart to, like, you're called to go somewhere, there's a story that has already been written for you there, like a love story, or there's some point of destiny, a touch of destiny in that place. And that's why your heart is calling you to that place and calling you, right? But I would not be here doing what I'm doing right now. This is something that I want to share with you. It's going to be in my book, if I ever write another book. The Courage to Pursue, probably. Or, yeah, it would probably be in that book, which I wrote by hand, and then I threw it away prior to this trip. So I have all of the words up here, but it needs to be written down in an actual book. But I was at a festival, and it's important why I shared this, why I was at that festival. The reason I went to this festival is because my favorite artist ever was Charlotte DeWitt. Is in the EDM techno space, Charlotte DeWitt. And the reason is because in 2021 I went to Exit Festival in Serbia, and I was on ecstasy, and it was the most euphoric experience I've ever had in my entire life. Watching this person, and it was it was euphoria, right? And so I was like, I'm going to be in Europe. I would love to, you know, relive that. I would love to see this artist again, who's an incredible artist, right? Just awesome, euphoric, ecstasy kind of experience. Not just the drug, but having an incredible time, right? And so I was doing my loop, and I had a flight that was to Greece, but it had a layover in Vienna, so I got off in Austria. I'm gonna burp again. And from there, I was waiting at a bus stop to leave there. The battery's gonna die, now we gotta change it one second. And the place that I really wanted to go to was Split, Croatia. And the reason that I wanted to go there is because that was one of the most incredible experiences of my entire life. And it was the last time in like the last 4.5 years where I truly felt like my best self, my truest self, the most free. Like I remember that feeling of just feeling so light when I was there in Split and Hvar, Croatia. And so I wanted to go there. That's why I got off in Vienna. I have the Flixbus ticket booked to Split from Vienna. I'm in the Autobus terminal, standing at the assigned, gate. No bus comes. And so I'm left there at like midnight, and I'm like, okay, my accommodation, I checked out, and I don't have an onward journey. I'm homeless, stranded here. And I did a very spontaneous thing. And they had a list of all of the outgoing, buses for the evening. So I looked at all of them, and it was basically like just playing a game of guidance with God. And basically, I've shared this probably so many times, but there's a guy named Daryl who channels this entity called Bashar. And he's like, oh, you should always follow your excitement. That's your highest path. That's you aligning with and being in harmony with flow. Follow your excitement. That's how you go with the flow of your life. And by the fastest way to get to where you want to go is by going slow. That's how you get to where you want to go the fastest. It's the path of least resistance. So I looked at all the places, and I was like, okay, I don't want to go to Bratislava. I don't want to go to this place. So the one that stood out to me was Berlin. Why? Because I've been to Berlin before, had an amazing time, and so that's where I went. And so I would go from Austria to Germany, and then God put it in my spirit to go to the UK, and it was a beautiful experience. Like, I've never seen the English countryside before, and my God, I remember I was driving on the wrong side of the road, and I was looking in the rear view mirror of the rental car, and I was just trees, farm, the sun was setting, and so there was a higher glow on the trees as the sun was setting. And you're in a one-person road, so it's like if there was onward traffic, you're fucked. You'd have to pull over to the side. And it was so beautiful. And I had never, I'm talking about rivaling Switzerland, Canada, California, you see the Yosemite or the Redwoods. It was so fucking gorgeous. It was without a doubt the highlight of my trip. And then I went from the UK to, where's that gnats flying around everywhere? To Mallorca, and then from there I did the coast of Spain. All the while looking at, what festivals that Charlotte DeWitt was, going to be present for, to see if that could, line up, kind of deal. So I'd go from Barcelona to Valencia to Cujera, and that's where the Medusa Festival was. And I remember there, the festival was over. I actually missed Charlotte DeWitt's set. While the only reason I was there was to see that artist, and I misread the show time, but I also, in hindsight, I believe that God didn't want me to have the memory ruined of the time where I had that euphoric experience watching her set in Serbia, to not have it, because I didn't have a great time whatsoever at, this festival this time around. But that wasn't the reason I was there. I was on divine assignment, and which is crazy, because it's like I would never have been there, and I would never be here doing what I'm doing had I not attended that festival in 2021. It's crazy. But the last day, I was getting my things to leave, and I was walking to my locker. And I was turning a blind corner. There's like a kiosk, where they sell like glasses and flip-flops and towels and shit. And so you couldn't see the little hallway right before the locker. So it's like this tent, blocked, so you can't see around the corner, tiny little grass walkway, and then the locker where my stuff was in. I was gonna say shit, my stuff was in there. And I go and I turn, and this motherfucker is standing there in the way, and I have onward momentum because I turned the blind corner, so I'm walking forward, can't just stop myself mid-stride. And the motherfucker did not move, and I had to contour my body to get around this guy. And there was a girl sitting down. He was talking to two girls. Girl was sitting down, girl was standing up. And he was talking to both of them, and then he looked at me and would not move as I walked by, and I said, excuse me, and then didn't move. I go and get my stuff from my locker, and I had the choice, okay, you could walk around, and I said, fuck no, I'm gonna go walk right back where I was, look at this motherfucker in the eye, and then I'm gonna say, excuse me, and then, walk my fucking way. And the reason that this is such a fire of a catalyst, or let me just finish the story. And so I go walk back. again, this motherfucker looks at me with his head a little too high. And then with this, that kind of cockiness, like you're talking with like two girls, whatever. And then he moves like an inch this way, just enough for me to, walk past while just staring, glaring at me while I'm going by. And I was like, thanks. And then I go leave, right? And I was so infuriated. And this is the reason why. On my journey of personal development, since I started my fitness transformation, June 25th, 2013, I'm on year 13. I have spent a lifetime shrinking myself to make other people feel comfortable. Shrinking in the workplace, when you're playing this fucking courtier, you're shrinking your intellect, sorry for the noise, you're shrinking your charm, you're shrinking your charisma, you're dimming your fucking lights to make other people not feel insecure, or I've done that for a lifetime. And I said, this motherfucker is not, and that's the reason that I walked back. I did this whole dialogue in my head. I said, it's taken me a lifetime to stop shrinking myself for other people, to stop contouring my fucking edges, to stop dimming my light. I said, I am not gonna shrink myself for fucking anyone, least alone you. And so that's when I went back, and I wanted to grab this motherfucker by his neck and just wring it. And that's where it planted the seed, because I was like, but I don't know how. And I said, I need to learn how so that never fucking happens again. And so I spend the next week in Cartagena, Spain, of like, basically, I was like, how to become like an ultimate combatant, like an ultimate gladiator. And so it's like, you need to know striking, and you need to know grappling, and you need to know, okay, I was like, what's the best ones? What's like a UFC champion? What do they need to know? Okay, you need to know, Muay Thai, you need to learn Jiu-Jitsu. I'm doing all this. And I am researching it, and then I'm getting, my accommodation set up for, my Brazil trip, and then, what gym I'm going to be training out of. And then I was like, I need to go to a martial arts gym. And then sure enough, that's where divine, intervention, destiny would lead me here in Sao Paulo, Brazil right now, where that's what I'm doing. So, my day-to-day is I either go to a gym, a bodybuilding gym, weightlifting gym, or to the martial arts gym. And right now, I dropped the wrestling class. I tried it, and way too advanced for me. I literally still have an injury from it. I attended for the majority of the month of October, but I was like, I need like a super beginner elementary course for this, because I was just getting fucking ragdolled every class and not learning anything. I was like, this is incredibly dangerous for me. But I'm doing the boxing class, I'm doing the Muay Thai class, and I'm doing the Jiu-Jitsu class. And I would never have been on this path if it wasn't for that entire story that I just shared with you. Like, if God didn't liberate me from that job January 8th, if I didn't get all of that horrific behavior, bestowed upon me in that entire season of refinement, I wouldn't be gifted with this, this mission, this purpose, with this freedom that, I have right now. And so I think that's the beautiful soliloquy when it comes to the sentiment of what it means for the semester 3, the courage to pursue. It's like, I've lived and died by that creative rat life, we're all going to make it, which I've given a couple of the wristbands to a couple of my combatant gladiators in the arena at the gym, where I shared with one. His name's Pedro, awesome kid, 17 years old, high school. And I was like, when I was 17, or when I was 18, 145 pounds, I watched this video by Aziz Shavershian called Ziz the Legacy. And, he had the exact same backstory as me, 145 pounds, 18 years old. And he had that, it was a tribute video made by his brother of his brother who had passed away. So you're watching a video of a 22-year-old Australian bodybuilder who is dead. He's gone in this video. And what changed my life was when he's looking into the camera, this kid who's gone. And he's like, we're all gonna fucking make it, bro, that's it. And I told that to Pietro. I said, I've reiterated that mantra nearly, I was about to cry, my mouth was dry, nearly every day for the past 13 years. I'm at 12 and a half right now, so for going on 13 years. And he was like, I just got, goosebumps. I got chills when you said that. And so it's really cool, because right now I'm in that same position of planting trees under whose shade I will never sit, and just having conversation with these kids who, I had one a couple weeks ago of another high school kid, I think his name's also Pietro, He goes by Pietro Justin Dalla. He has a bunch of different names. Awesome guy, class act. And it was just talking about traveling. And I remember that I got that seed of belief planted for me about the possibility of traveling when I worked as a personal trainer, where I didn't think it was possible for me. And I had a client, Marla, she was like, when you're in Paris, and I was like, yeah, when I'm in Paris. And then she gave me the greatest gift, which was severity. She took me seriously. She said, when you're in Paris, and she looked past my insecurity, my arrogance, my limited sight and perspective. Because up until that point, I thought traveling was only for the special, the gifted, the elite, the wealthy, the rich. I didn't think from my story and where I have been, living in a garage for 3 years to graduate high school, like I didn't think that that was privy, for someone like me. And so, but having traveled, having experienced living in my car before doing that 6-month Europe trip in 2021, I was like, it's more expensive to be homeless living in California than it is to travel to Europe, where you're living in hostels, public transportation, grocery store food. And so that high school kid, Pietro, he said that exact same thing. He's like, oh man, I really want to go to Thailand, but it's too expensive, this, having that lens of someone born and raised in Brazil. And I said, that's complete bullshit. I said, the most expensive thing is the flight, and then there's a bunch of places that are even cheaper to live and travel through than Brazil. And he was like what? I said Cairo, I said Albania, and I said Thailand's comparable, just to name a few. And he messaged me a gratitude DM for just opening his eyes and opening his mind of what's possible, because it is just the flight. That is the only thing that's expensive, or the most expensive thing is the flight. And then when you're doing a hostel accommodation, your cost of living will be less or comparable to where you're living right now. And even right now, living in Sao Paulo right now, or not living, but staying here for this leg of the journey, this leg of the divine quest, the rent on this Airbnb is $800 a month. My rent in California was $2,550 before anything else, before the car note, car insurance, gas, gym membership, food, all of that. My monthly overhead was $4,300. It fluctuated $4,300 to $4,700, and then here it's probably $1,600 to $3,000, but that $3,000 is I'm paying off a dentist bill for the next few months because I got all of my dental work done in California before I left. But they're like, you don't have to pay it right now. This 12 grand note, you could pay it in a year with no interest. And so I was like, yes, I'll take that. And so it's a $750 thing on top of that. But if you just do food, gym membership, and accommodation, it's $1,300 to $1,600 for Brazil, for Thailand, etc. But it all comes to that same purpose of life is about planting trees under whose shade you'll never sit, and just having that conversation with one of these high school kids. You have no idea the ripple effect that happens as a result. But I thought that would be a cool story to share. And so I wanted to bring you guys up to speed, because I know I abruptly ended the 40, I think we got to the 43rd. I think there's 5 left, 44, 5, 6, 7, 8, 43rd Law of Power. And then I did that 3-month Euro trip, and then have my flight right now where I am currently residing in Brazil. But I just stopped out of the blue, and the reason is because I was on paid administrative leave of absence, and I also wasn't allowed to talk, meaning, I was given a part of my other criteria was I wasn't allowed to contact anyone from my school district organization. So I lost my voice. So I was like, okay, can't talk, can't speak, can't go anywhere, can't get a new job. And so all of it was just divine guidance. And it's so cool when you can step outside of yourself and look at the chessboard of where you're at right now in your life and see where God is guiding you. And until you go through your season of refinement, which is agony, until you have the courage to pursue, which is going the path least traveled, it's walking the narrow path. Path that everybody else does, the Ratlife script, the path all traveled, you will never go through your season of refinement that way. You'll never become, sorry for the noise, your greatest self, your best man, your best woman. You will never become your ultimate potential when you just follow the fucking blueprint of enslavement and indoctrination that everybody else abides by and follows. But when you choose to walk this path, which not feels like hell or looks like hell, but is hell, is mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially agonizing. And that's my every night. And just incredibly painful. You learn from that everything in your life is happening for you, no matter how horrid or agonizing it is at the time. And you cannot see how the stars are literally aligning and conspiring in your favor until you're in a position to see that so clearly in hindsight. So I would highly encourage anybody to have the courage to pursue, because I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in now if I didn't harbor that bravery to weather that storm. You know, if I didn't stand it, my favorite quote probably in the entire world, other than life is about planting trees under shade you'll never sit, I have a lot of them, we're all gonna make it, is life is a storm, my young friend. You will bask in the sunlight one moment, be shattered on the rocks the next. What makes you a man is what you do when that storm comes. You must look into that storm and shout as you did in Rome. Do your worst, for I will do mine. And the fates will know you as we know you, as insert your name, the man or the woman. That's a quote from Alexander Dumas from The Count of Monte Cristo, my favorite book, my favorite movie, and it is completely true. And when you have that lens that everything is happening for you, you have that emotional control and stoicism to weather that storm, to not wish any ill will upon anyone, because you're operating from a source of just pure unconditional love and complete surrender and complete trust that everything that you're going through is happening for you, for your good, for your highest good, for your highest and greatest nature's design, your greatest potential. All of that comes from you walking the path, having the courage to pursue. And that courage is to continue to pursue from hardship and adversity and failure and rejection and the worst of storms. It's getting back up and continuing on the path, right? So that's what brings us to semester 3. And that's what I want to share right now. I'm currently in the elementary stages of building the website. I know. I own the domain. You can't take it, but I'm going to be making it in the future. But it's when you talk about like strengths and weaknesses, this is one of my greatest weaknesses. And by the grace of God, I will have help to bring this to life, because I have the vision. I have all of the little pieces. It's just my plate is so full right now in terms of everything that I'm trying to do while I'm here on every given day. But I was like, this is another thing that I have to do, that I want to do and have to do. It's part of the plan, part of the mission, is to complete Ratlife University. Just because this is an education that no one gets taught in school. And I know in jest I'm talking about, pick up and this at the start, but you're not going to be taught taking the narrow path in school. You're not going to be taught the power of belief in school. You're not going to be taught anything prevalent to personal development in school. The 48 laws of power. We're talking about deception, manipulation, all of these things and patterns that I was able to recognize and combat in real time in my snake pit of a job that I was liberated from. Like, you're not taught any of those things. And unless you have that incredible discernment, that incredible discretion, you're going to be a victim of all of the power plays and abuse and manipulations and tactics and schemes and fucking serpentry that is being implored on you. And so everything from psychology to human nature to control to power to these people who are very, very inadequate in these positions of authority and leadership, who inevitably end up abusing that position unless you have this education, which is universal, man. I'm in Brazil right now. Sorry for the noise. And you think the rat life is limited to where, in the United States or into a Western country. It's not. Every single person is living the rat life, man. Every single person is yearning for freedom, is following the blueprint of going to school, is working for necessity. It wishes that they could live life on their own terms, wishes simply they could be themselves. But they're waking up and they're putting on one of 1,000 fucking masks for the day. And then you get so lost in that path that you don't even remember who the fuck you are. I remember, and I shared this in a thing that I'm doing for the website, separate videos from this. I remember I was on the Stairmaster for one of my last preps before I left California. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I told you I would come back for you. Because there was another night where I was in my apartment and like borderline tears because of the inner child that had just been so lost. And I was like, I know that, that ball of just love and glee and sunshine and just joy and happiness and positivity, he's still there. you know, underneath all of this bullshit, all of this wall that I had to fortify from all of these motherfuckers projecting on me over the past years. And you build this indestructible fortification, and you're this meaner, harder, hardened version of yourself. And it's that quote that exacerbates that quote from Paulo Coelho from The Alchemist, who's like, life is about unbecoming everything that's not you. And we all build this kind of a wall, especially when you're operating as this courtier in your workplace, in your family, in your relationships. You build this fortification from having been hurt before, or having been, you know, ostracized for doing this action or this action. So you do a tiny little contour of yourself, a tiny dim here. You wear this mask here. You don't speak your truth here. You say yes when you want to say no here. And you do that 1,000 fucking times. And if you've been hurt in like past relationships or abuse from family or, you know, toxic, shitty people from your life, you'll build this hardened wall where that inner girl, that inner child, that inner boy is so fucking buried down there. And I remember I was in tears and I said, I promise I'll come back for you. I have not forgotten about you. This is the person that I have to become right now and that I need to be in order to fucking survive. And so once you make it past all of that, you know, once you've survived the hell of your hero's journey, of your path, then that game is softening yourself and removing that wall one brick at a time, and then having the courage to welcome love in, you know what I mean, that you had ran away from in the past, because in your past, when you put yourself out there, when you put your heart out there, it was only met with pain. And so that's why we put those walls up, because it's just that trauma response. I don't want to feel this pain again, you know what I'm saying? So let me protect myself. So it's all very, very interesting. And I remember being on that Stairmaster, looking at myself with just that sense of pride of, you know, being on the journey of my walk home. And I said, I told you I would come back for you, sweetheart. I promised you that I would. And I wouldn't say that I'm completely home yet, but I'm very, very far on my path of authenticity. You know what I'm saying? Like, even from this video, you see all the flaws, you see all the quirks, you see all the missed, the gaps within my speech, my rhetoric. But you're not really seeing me play a character. You know what I'm saying? You're not seeing me trying to fucking entertain you, or put on a show, or be a clown, or do any bullshit. Like, if you are watching this video right now and you feel like you're in an environment of safety, where you feel safe to let go, to relax, to receive, to be receptive to what I'm saying, that is coming from that frequency and that vibration of somebody where you feel safe in their presence, right? So they're operating with that lens of most likely authenticity. There's no fucking political agenda here. There's no read between the lines things. There's no harpoon. There's, you know, what am I selling you on? You know, so I'm selling you on the idea of this is semester 3 and that we're continuing this noble quest. But other than that, that's where I want to leave it, I think. So I am very, very happy that I got to make this video, because I was going to push this off till tomorrow. But a part of your connection with God and just following you hear the crack in my shoulder, crackle pop Rice Krispies, you get divine insight and downloads and whispers of do this, go here, do this. And so one right before I sat down was just somebody who whispered in my ear, hey, maybe we should film today. Son of a bitch. No. But here we are doing, just living our life in obedience, you know what I'm saying? In surrender, in flow. And the beauty about it is when you do that, you'll be on your highest timeline. You'll be the furthest along on your walk home. And it's a beautiful journey, man. I'll share this with you. I've shared this in earlier videos, but and the reason that I want to share this is because it was the most recent mirror that happened in my the past week of jiu-jitsu classes. There was a girl who had an incredible ego, and I told her, I was like, I'll make you stronger if you can meet me in the gym with patience and humility. And I just thought about what an ego that she has. And I was just, I got met in the conversation with that same ego, where they're like, I agree 100%. And then they give me their paragraph of basically saying the complete opposite of the intention of adhering to what I had to say. And I said, good riddance, you're on your own. See ya, kind of a deal. And then I was walking to the metro station, and I was reflecting with God, about what my favorite thing about God is. And you can conceptualize God however you want. The easiest way for me to do it is he's my highest self. He's my highest possible self, my highest energy, my highest form of frequency vibration. That is the godlike divinity consciousness that's within inside of you. It's the highest level of consciousness. And so I always think about God as just myself who's already walked the path, and he's giving me breadcrumbs on where to go. Somebody who loves me unconditionally, loves you so much that they're willing to, to still support you and encourage you even if you fuck off and do something else. That's how much they love you unconditionally. But the best thing about God is, and my favorite thing, he never runs ahead of you. Never runs ahead of you. He will wait there with infinite patience as you go, you say, I'm going to do it my own way. Whereas he's trying to have you avoid the failure, avoid the heartbreak, avoid the, disarray. And then once you get humbled, then you find your way back to your path. But he never walks ahead of you, and he just stays there with his lantern to guide you and to show you the very next step that you need to take. And I love that so much, because on my journey of becoming my most Christ-like self, that is something. And this girl that I was like, oh man, she has an ego or this, she was being that mirror for me of, in my past friendships and my past relationships with people, regardless of platonic, romantic, as soon as they wouldn't do what I told them to do or suggested or encouraged, and they chose to fuck it off and do something else, I would do that. I would, good riddance, you're on your own, see ya, kind of a deal. And I said, that's not what God does. That's not your favorite thing about God. And I learned from one of my good friends, Leah, on this trip of what it means to be a real friend. And she said, you give your advice, you give your recommendations, but then, it's ironic because she was like, I don't believe in God. And I said, for somebody who walks in a Christ-like image, you believe in God whether you want to or not. And she was like, but you stay there, and give them support unconditionally. So, and you're there to, pick them back up after they go through whatever they need to go through, because that's the way that they learn. You know what I'm saying? So they need to go through the failure. They need to learn it the hard way. They need to talk to that guy that they shouldn't be talking to, whatever. And then as a good friend, you're still there to support them unconditionally, not on the condition that they do what you say, unconditionally, right? So she's the embodiment, the epitome of unconditional love. And I said, wow. And so then pattern recognition, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna not shake this chick's hand. I'm gonna give her a big hug like I've been doing, and not, go for this fucking passive aggressive bullshit handshake. I'm gonna ask her to spar, or it's in jiu-jitsu, it's called rolling, to roll with me. And I'm even gonna give her my bracelet that says we're all gonna make it. An act of unconditional love. And sure enough, just complete, that I got everything out of it, where of the mirror that she was being gifted to me to be on my path, on my journey, for my own development, not just hers. So it's not only like for what, seeds of belief or potential or possibility or encouragement, or, what I could plant within her, trees under whose shade I'll never sit, but the better version of myself that she made me, which is now somebody who will meet people with even more patience and even more compassion and not run ahead of them. And so how beautiful is that we as ourselves can, I feel like I need to burp again, act in that Christ-like image. When you go through your season of refinement, and they say, how do you know, like when you're going to go refine silver, how do you know when it's refined? And then the blacksmith, he says, that's easy, when I can see my image in it. You know what I'm saying? And that's our whole journey. When we're talking about becoming our most authentic self, people should look at you and be able to see God through you. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't give a shit what your religion is. I'm not Christian, I'm not Catholic. When it talks about being a Christ-like mirror to other people, that's somebody with the utmost compassion, the utmost patience, the utmost generosity, the person who operates in the utmost unconditional love that he imparts onto others. Do you know what I'm saying? That's the game, So we're all walking that path, every single person. And when you can actually see the video game through the lens of all the bullshit and all the noise and all the distractions and all the garbage, and you can actually see what the game is about, every single person is just trying to walk home. And we numb ourselves and we distract ourselves with all this bullshit and all this garbage and the made up titles and the jobs, the fucking made up pieces of paper with degrees on them. All of this all of this garbage that has nothing to do with us embodying our greatest, glowing, Christ-like, authentic, loving, beautiful selves. But that's the game. It's just getting back there, getting back home, walking each other home, encouraging, supporting. And that's what this garden of this university, of where these are going to be housed, that I would love help on, is going to invite for food for thought for other people. It's just creating an environment where people feel safe to let go, to consider, to reflect, to discuss, to address traumas, limiting beliefs, pains of the past, right? And to heal, and to heal those. And as a result, what happens? Then you glow and grow, attract, magnetize, but you exalt the quotes. Life is not about what you get, it's about who you become and what you're able to give now that you've become more, right? So that's why you should set a goal, not for the material, not for the end goal, not for the accolade. For the man or woman you need to become, the person that you have to level up to become in order to achieve that goal. That's the game. That's why they say it's not the destination, it's the journey. Because once you are at this peak, now you can see, you have greater sight of your potential. So you're like, oh, now I'm here, now I know I can get to here. And so life is not the destination. We never actually make it. It's in the pursuit. That's how you make it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what Ratlife is. That's what we're doing this all for. When I say it starts with belief, it's possible, I'm worthy of it, whatever it is. Your business, your body, your relationship, I'm worthy, I'm enough. And the courage to pursue, dude, the courage to try, to fail, to go, to walk the narrow path that nobody does, which is doing the inner work, the painful work that nobody wants to do, to look at yourself in the mirror and see who the problem is, and see all the things that you've been neglecting, you've been suppressing, all the emotional projection that you've been, imploring onto others. All it is just getting walked home and going back to the person that you were before the world, hardened you, and made you into the person that you fucking had to fortify yourself into just to survive. You know what I'm saying? Other people's emotional projection, insecurities, fears, traumas, bullshit. They're verbal garbage. All these motherfuckers bleeding on somebody who never cut them, And so the greatest strength is you choosing to not let life's circumstances and conditions harden you in perpetuity, but to stay soft, to stay within your childlike spirit, to stay, to continue to harbor that glow, that enthusiasm, that bottled excitement, because that, I believe, encourages other people to have that same courage, the same courage to be themselves, the same courage to walk that narrow path, the same courage to pursue their own passion, fuck the noise, to their own mission. Do you know what I'm saying? So, their own purpose, to close the gap of their own highest nature's design. So, with that, semester 3, you're up to date, the latest, the greatest. We're in Sao Paulo right now. Now, my visa expires end of December, but I got a flight booked for Rio for December 30th, because I really want to watch the, I might regret it. There's like 2 million people I researched that show up for it, but like New Year in Rio, where they do the fireworks over the water, I have this vision where I already own the domain, so you can't steal it, but where I have my camera and it says, my name is Tarek Hawks and this is escapetheratlife.com, because I have a GoPro I bought, I just haven't, updated it, configured it, whatever. And then I pan to my woman and then she says, we're all gonna make it. And then you pan to the fireworks. Like that could be the Instagram reel, the introduction to the launch of escapetheratlife.com. That would be remarkable, that'd be incredible. So I'm putting that out there in our manifestations. But that being said, I need to get a visa extension because I also want to stay here through 180 days, I'll be honest. I have a 10-year visa for Brazil, that's a re-entry one. But I want to do 90 days and then I want to extend it for 90. I want to stay for 180, even though I don't know if I could do it because 2 years ago I went to Carnival in 2023 and dude, in February it is so hot. Like not California hot in August. That was nothing compared to the potency of the sun in South America. Like it was, you go outside and you get sunburned immediately. So I don't know, I'm gonna try not to be a bitch, just because it is invaluable, the education that I'm getting within the martial arts school, both for the training and how it transcends outside of the gym. Just to have the honor, the privilege to be tutored by this martial artist, this boxing coach and MMA competitor, this, you know, purple belt, brown belt, black belt, this Muay Thai and kickboxing fighter. Like, it's a gift. It sincerely is. So I love it, and we're gonna do this, and I really want to do that for 180 days before the continuation of the quest. But I think it would be really cool, as we're doing Ratlife University of the Robert Greene books, which right now I'm going to finish the 48 Laws of Power, and then I want to do the 33 Strategies of War next, because I was able to do the 48 Laws of Power as I was working the Ratlife in real time. And the beautiful thing about the whole arc, the whole hero, I'm not a villain, the whole hero arc of Ratlife, escaping the Ratlife, is after I escaped, I went back into the Ratlife from semester 1. It starts with belief, and then escaped the Ratlife, and now this is the other side of the escape, and now we're literally in divine surrender of God's plan of the noble quest, you know, continuing. And so you're seeing the journey in real time of being in the Ratlife, escaping from the Ratlife, not only just in the job, but like I said, where I started at 145 pounds. So if you're doing a physical transformation, like, I'm telling you, you take this story, it has potential of anybody being able to be like, huh, if he can do it, I can, you know. So that's the name of the game. That's semester 3, The Courage to Pursue. Target House. I'm going to tell you, escapetheratlife.com. I own the fucking domain. There's nothing you can do about it. But don't try to make my website without me. Maybe you know how to steal my shit. No. It starts with belief. That's what Ratlife is. I'm fucking sweating. It's really hot in here. And the courage to pursue. That is Ratlife. And we are all going to make it. Next video on YouTube is going to be what? I'm pretty sure it's law number 40. I want to say 44. I think the last one we did is 43. And so you're gonna get these lectures. I hope the audio is okay. Live in Sao Paulo, Brazil. I know you missed my apartment where I had the lights, like I had the colored lights, and now there's the couch, the bed, there's my clothes. Pretty cool though. I don't know if the back is like blurred, but you know, the production's not too bad. I will show you this though. So look at what I have this on, dude. It's it's pots, and then my books, and then I don't own a tripod. Shit. Alright, I'll let you guys go. We're all gonna make it, and I will check in with you later.